Display of teen violence, but what's really responsible? Video games, music, or just plain bad parenting? Scarborough Country, tomorrow at 10 on MSNBC.
Coming up, a clean sweep. Michael Jackson not guilty on all counts. Back home at Neverland, a free man tonight.
Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
14 weeks of testimony, some 135 witnesses, more than 30 hours of deliberation by 12 jurors over 7 days. They find him not guilty of conspiracy, not guilty of molesting a child, and not guilty of giving alcohol to a minor.
We expected probably better evidence, you know, something that was a little more convincing, and it just wasn't there.
We hear from the jurors, from the prosecution, from Jackson's family. A special edition of the program about justice starts now. Hi, everyone. It was, in the end, a stunning verdict. A Santa Maria jury finds Michael Jackson not guilty on each and every charge he faced. No compromises, no hung jury. It seems no second thoughts. A jury of 8 women and 4 men found there just wasn't enough evidence to put Jackson behind bars. Leaving after the verdict, he seemed to be a shell of the man who danced on the SUV at the outset of this case. So here now, a look back at how it happened.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child, not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony.
Obviously, we're disappointed in the verdict, but we work every day in a system of justice. We believe in the system of justice, and I've been a prosecutor for 37 years, and 37 years I've never quarreled with a jury's verdict, and I'm not going to start today.
You mentioned the celebrity factor. Do you think that's played a key part?
Well, it seems to us, but maybe we're just looking for explanations in the wrong places. I don't know.
What mother in her right mind would allow that to happen, or you know, just freely volunteer your child, you know, to sleep with someone, and not just so much Michael Jackson, but any person for that matter.
We looked at all the evidence. We looked at Michael Jackson, and one of the first things we decided that we had to look at him as just like any other individual, not just as a celebrity. And once we got that established, that we could go beyond that, we were able to deal with it just as fairly as we could with anybody else.
We actually challenged one another in the deliberation room. I mean, it wasn't, I don't want to give the impression that this was a really slam dunk deal where you just go in to a room and 12 people agree. I don't think 12 people can agree on anything except that the sun might come up tomorrow morning. And beyond that, you got to talk about it. And we did talk about it. We challenged the issues, and we came to the decision that pointed to reasonable doubt.
We're joined now on the phone by one of the alternate jurors in the case. Charles Luke was known as alternate juror number 3. Mr. Luke, thanks very much for taking the time to come on the program. We appreciate it.
Hello.
Hi. All right, so let me ask you the first and most obvious question. If you had been one of the deliberating jurors, would you have come up with the same verdict?
I would think so. I think that when the trial ended and we went on our way, that we had real confidence in that group of 12 that they would come up with the right decision. They're a very sincere group and had worked hard on it for several months and had all the testimony and evidence in front of them, and I'm sure they worked hard on it. So I can support their decision for sure.
But even apart from supporting it, and I think that anyone who appreciates the jury system is going to say, look, this is the verdict and it is what it is. But now asking you on your own to evaluate it, would you, the minute you left, when the judge said thank you, we'll let you know if we need you, did you walk away from there thinking you would find Michael Jackson not guilty on all the charges?
No, I walked away realizing that I needed deliberation, and while I had some leanings it was really a decision to be made all 12, and I needed to review a lot of the testimony because, you know, we heard so much in that period of time that you had to put it all together. You had to connect the dots, and then you had to identify some of the truth that hadn't been coming through.
So it was a close case for you?
Yes. It's tough to get to a verdict of without reasonable doubt.
Yeah. And so you think
gut
that was the... You think that was the issue, was the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt?
I think that is a big issue in it, yes.
Let me let you listen to a couple pieces of sound from some of the jurors who you got to know well, and a lot of them were talking about the mother of the accuser in this case, and I listened to them and I'm thinking, boy, the minute this woman got off the stand, this prosecutor was finished. Let's listen, and then I want to ask you about it on the other side.
I can't really point to any one specific item right now. I mean, there were tons of evidence to consider, and to pick one item out is really difficult. And I would just say that we considered all of the evidence, and of course, since it's a criminal trial, it had to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And in looking at all of the evidence and not just one specific item, I mean, that's the conclusion we arrived at. And I think we really worked hard and were very careful in making that decision.
Okay, well, that was not the piece of sound that I was looking for. But let me ask you this. Let me read you this from juror number 1. When he spoke out, said something I thought was real interesting. Michael Jackson probably has molested boys. I cannot believe that after some of the testimony that was offered, I can't believe that this man could sleep in the same bedroom for 365 straight days and not do something more than watch television and eat popcorn. That doesn't make sense to me. But that doesn't make him guilty of the charges that were presented in this case, and that's where we had to make our decision. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think, you know, there's a pretty strong body of evidence on both sides of this decision. But again, not having been in the deliberation room with them, you know, I would not second guess the conclusion that they came to.
Right, but look, I'm not asking you to second guess. I mean, for example, I think that they put together a very strong case with regard to the other allegations of molestation, but a weaker case with regard to this boy and this family. And I think that's sort of what juror number 1 is saying. It's saying Michael Jackson probably has molested boys. Did you come to that conclusion at the end of the case?
Well, first of all, I don't recall number 1 saying that.
He said it to the Associated Press, not in the press conference. He said it afterwards.
Well,
yeah.
Dan, I wouldn't want to comment on that. You know,
okay.
You know, I heard Ray say that he had some feelings going into it, and he still got some feelings coming out. Now, what does that mean in detail? I don't know. Maybe it means what you said. But, you know, there is a strong bit of facts connected with a verdict going the other way. But, you know, I think Tom Mesereau did a very strong job of building doubt and calling the family a pack of liars.
Yeah.
And you know, there were lies going on. Some of them were innocent, but obviously some weren't.
Let me ask you about that. So let me play the piece of sound I was looking for before, and this is a number of the jurors talking about the mother of the accuser in this case.
I might be speaking maybe for myself and a few others, jurors, that, you know, what mother in her right mind would allow that to happen, or you know, just freely volunteer your child, you know, to sleep with someone, and not just so much Michael Jackson, but any person for that matter.
I disliked it intensely when she snapped her fingers at us. That's when I thought, don't snap your fingers at me, lady.
I was very uncomfortable with that. A lot of the witnesses looked over at us from time to time, but then they'd look back, but she didn't take her eyes off of us.
Boy, Mr. Luke, it sure sounds like the jurors really detested the mother of the accuser in this case?
Well, Dan, I know that you were in the courtroom quite a bit. I don't know if you saw her, but, you know, that's a woman who's been through 17 or so years of physical abuse. She's been through a lot. And, you know, a mother with a 12-year-old boy understands that, you know, he really needs a man in his life. And it appears that there's been 3 or 4 of them who have become very close to Michael Jackson, and of all of that same kind, where they do not have a father in the house. But that, again, does not, you know, prove guilt. Janet is an unusual person in some respects. She's struggling to I think, do the best thing for her family, but she comes across as a different person in the courtroom.
Final question, let me just ask you this. Am I reading you wrong if I say that when you left to go on your own and the jurors went to deliberate, that you were more inclined to find him guilty of something than this verdict showed?
I'd rather not say how I was leaning, but I definitely could not have made a decision. I needed to review testimony, and I really needed to have some discussions with people about the lies and which ones were meaningful and which ones weren't, because there were some going on both sides. And you had to make some judgments on some of these witnesses.
Charles Luke, I know it must have been frustrating to be an alternate juror and not get to actually deliberate the case, but thank you very much for taking the time to come on the program. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
NBC's Mike Taibbi was in the courtroom when the verdict was read. All right, Mike, you know, look, it sounds to me like Mr. Luke might have been someone who might have gone a different way on the jury, but who knows? You were inside the courtroom watching those jurors as the verdict was delivered. At least one of them was crying, right?
Yeah, it was very emotional in court, and I think what you heard in Mr. Luke's voice is the internal debate so many people had, so many reasonable people, and in this case people who were knowledgeable about this case, about which way to lean. And what you really heard was the distinction, the semantic distinction between the words not guilty and the word innocent. A lot of people in Jackson's camp are going to be saying this proves he's innocent. Well, in the minds of many people, even people on this jury, it's quite clear they don't believe that at all. And Mr. Luke seemed to be wrestling with that even as he was answering your questions. And I have to tell you, and you know this too, Dan, because you've been sitting with people too who've been involved in the coverage of this case, that very informed people who've thought very hard about all this evidence have found it difficult to side on one side without conceding that the other side has validity. There are two polar opposite points of view about the facts not in dispute in this case. As one juror said, the one who was quoted by the Associated Press, I think he's a child molester. I think he's done it in the past, but it didn't meet the standard of beyond reasonable doubt in this case. And that, to me, is the beauty of our system, Dan. You're a lawyer, you know. I studied law, and I know it too. This is a system of laws and not of men. That's political correctness. But, you know, the people, the human beings who watch this case think there's got to be something wrong with this guy. But if you follow the law, you have to say that in this case, it was not proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
And I'm going to talk more about that at the end of the case. Mike's going to stick around, talk to him a little bit more about inside the courtroom. Also coming up, an attorney who has represented Michael Jackson's family for an intricate part of this defense team. Brian Oxman joins us in a moment to talk about his reaction to families to the verdict.
The whole truth and nothing but. On the Abrams Report with Dan Abrams on MSNBC.
What would you rather have, a car or a cleaner environment?
I would love to have a clean environment, but that's like asking someone to give up chocolate, to give up their car. It's just not going to happen. I love my car.